Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Is It Crazy or Is It God?
Another episode.
Yeah, man.
Here we go.
We're getting into it.
We're getting all the way into it.
We're like, let's see, if I count it right, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers.
I mean, listen, I haven't memorized them.
I think Judges.
I haven't memorized.
No, Numbers, Judges. I think Ruth, Joshua, then Ruth, I think. Oh, man. I think it's Joshua, then Judges, then Ruth. I think we're like 9 in. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's great. It's great.
That's what consistency is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, what's the difference? Here we go. I'm going to ask how your week is, but let me roll into... No, let me ask how your week is first, and I have a question. So, how was your week?
See, are you listening for, like, information, or are you just waiting to talk? Because you're like, oh, I have a question after this question.
I do. I have.
So, ask your question first, and then we can
Okay. From Genesis to now, have you seen a difference in your life by reading the Bible?
Absolutely. That's a great question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I've also seen. Wow, that's a really heavy question because I've seen myself in the people of the Bible, the Israelites specifically. I've seen myself sort of like display those same behaviors of impatience and complaining and sometimes like having an ego and, you know, like, what about me? And, you know, all this. But also just the act of reading the Bible, I've seen a difference in myself because I feel like I am a little bit more patient. And I notice as an aside, like as a sidebar, that the weeks that I don't read a few times a week, like my week doesn't go as well as when I'm reading every morning. Like that's a thing. And like sometimes it's just like the Israelites. Sometimes I have to learn things over and over again. It's like, yeah, it's the truth, just the way you left it, right? Like when you don't read in the mornings, like your week doesn't go that well, or it doesn't go as well as it does when you read in the mornings, right? Like life is great, you know, but when I'm not reading in the mornings, it's affecting me, and I can tell that. So, but I keep like, I keep like conveniently forgetting that and not making time in the morning and making something else more important, and then, you know, and I keep learning the lesson over and over again. And then I go back to reading in the morning. I'm like, oh yeah, remember that? So it's the irony of it is insane because it's like, yeah, from Genesis to now, I've noticed that I'm just like these people in a lot of ways. And I'm also noticing that the act of reading it, you know, or not, is making me more like them. So how about you? That's a great question. Let me turn that on you before we ask about each other's weeks. From Genesis to now, do you see a difference in yourself?
Yes. It's a very interesting thing. So, from Genesis, I didn't know what to expect or what to get out of reading the Bible. I didn't like. Okay, I'm gonna be honest as we should be, but we hear it all the time. Go to the Bible, you know, read the Bible on your own. Go to church on your own, which we should be doing, but it's something that we're not doing. So, reading the Bible and really intently reading it, you know, it's different than what I've learned is different from reading and applying it to just reading. And you know, when you read with intent, you learn. So when we started in Genesis, I was just reading. Like, okay, let me read it and try to see what I get out of it. And then the more that I started reading it, the more that I started applying it to my life, and then started realizing, like, oh man, I probably would have been dead back then because I disobey God on a daily basis. But here's the thing with reading the Bible. It's going to open up some things within you and force you to ask questions about yourself.
Yeah.
It's gonna tell you the truth, and which makes it uncomfortable because it's lessons that other people have done, and God has had no mercy, but He shows mercy to you, right? So that's what I kind of got out of it, and now it's to the point where I'm praying more. I'm trying to build a relationship with God. I talk about that all the time, but I'm really trying. When I mean trying, I mean like with intent. Because you can try all day, but if you don't have enthusiasm, or if it's not done with intention, then you're wasting your time. And that's the honest truth. If you think about it, it's a difference between being a good employee and a not good employee. There's a difference between being anything in life. If you take it for granted or you don't pay attention, the results aren't good. But if you have enthusiasm and do it with intent, it automatically comes out good. Whether it's your job, whether it's being a good parent, whether it's doing good in school. If you really want to do good at something and you do it with intent, you become good at it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do now, that I've noticed in the past, that I try to get stuff done quickly or say it quickly. Now it's like, well, let's read that again. Let's highlight that. Let's take it in and really break it down.
Yeah.
Instead of just glossing over it.
Yeah.
You keep glossing over life, it's gonna gloss over you.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where I'm at now. Trying to, as you see, I've started highlighting it, and eventually I'm gonna start like journaling about what I've read and how it applies to my life. That's what I'm gonna.
That's what's up. I like that.
In September. So.
Yeah, that was good.
Long-winded answer.
That was good. I appreciated that.
How was your week?
My week was decent. Like, okay, here's the thing. I live in a first world country and have a good job in healthcare and all that good stuff. So life is great. You know what I'm saying? Sort of like, but like, if I'm going to be honest, like within me, right? Like the real true answer is that I could have had a better week. I'm struggling with self-discipline. I'm struggling with, just holding myself accountable, and I'm struggling with distraction. And I mean, I'm able to do the day-to-day things. It's not like I'm, all the way off the grid or whatever. Like, I'm going to work, I'm getting stuff done, emails are being answered, like things are being checked off, but like on a personal, internal level, it's like I just know I can do so much better, and like I feel like I'm doing the minimum. And I know that so that in that way, I know that I didn't have the best week. And so, but I will say that I'm becoming obsessed with finding the answers. So it's like every time that I have like a setback, or what I would call a setback, I know that like on the other end of that, there's some assessment and there's like a new frontier. So it's not like I'm just like, oh, I'm not doing that well, whatever. It's like, that wasn't great. That wasn't your best performance. That wasn't your best shot. Why did you do it that way? Yeah. What could you do or set up for yourself so that that doesn't happen again? So that, I think that those sorts of things that I'm struggling with are not bad, because they're leading to a better me. But just being honest, I know this wasn't my best week, even though I did the minimum. Right? I did the minimum. I showed up. I did the things I was supposed to do. But I could have done so much better. I could have done, specifically with like my workouts, with my I actually ate pretty good this week.
We both did.
With my workouts, I think I showed up twice when I wanted to show up 4 times. And then with my, one of my goals is to wake up early, and early is relative. I mean, I'm never in the bed past 9, but my goal is to wake up at 4:15, 4:30, but like a good day would be 5:30 or even 5:50, right? 5:50 would not be good in my opinion, like on a weekday. But anyway, I'm rambling here, but I have goals for early mornings, for activities for early mornings that I haven't met, or I've only met like twice this week. So yeah, I didn't have the best week, but I'm looking forward to using some of the information that I gained to have a better week next week. Okay. Well, how was your week?
It was good. It was good.
Oh, that's good.
It could be better. So this week I changed up my morning routine, and I'm trying to get into this ratio, right? So shout out Jim Rohn. He always talks about ratios, right? I think I said that last time, but I'm really trying to be more disciplined and bump up my ratios more, right? So I go to the gym 3 days a week, but the type of workouts I do, I lift weights, but the workout program, I really have to focus on my rest days. But on those days, I still need to do some light work. I need to walk. I need to have a bike exercise, or I need to stretch, right? So I want to, instead of working out 3 times, I want to push it to 5. Working out 5 days a week. I wrote my journal like 4 times. Said my affirmations.
Yeah.
I even changed the way that I say my affirmations. I was talking about intent earlier. So I would wake up in previous, and I would just run through my affirmations. But that's just wasting time. That's just doing something to do it because you read about it or heard about it. But if you really want to become a different person and change, you have to do things with intent and listen to what people, are telling you. Successful people are telling you to do. So, and it says in the Bible, ask and you shall receive. So with my affirmations, I've started reading them slower. And actually trying to embrace and believe them.
Yeah.
More than just right? It's just another chat. Well, no, let's focus on your intent and believe what you can become. And I've really started writing in my journal honestly, like what I'm really going through, instead of just, I would just write. Now it's really like, okay, how do you really feel?
Yeah, I like that.
And that's it. And I've been visualizing and meditating. So I'm just trying to get good at those. But I've done it like four days this week. So, now I'm just trying to get this week went better than a lot of my weeks. So I'm just trying to be consistent with that and add more to my plate and just stretch.
Yeah.
I think God wants me to stretch now. So, so I'm looking forward to this week. I'm gonna, try this new system that somebody told me about. No, I'm gonna try this 10 by 10 go. I'm on phase one, so I'll try to be phase two, phase three, and base that around my schedule, and really start checking it off and holding myself accountable. That's where I'm at. Like, I can, write my goals down and really focusing and building my schedule around those goals, and be disciplined with intent of doing
Man, he talking real good, y'all. I mean, I feel like I'm in a sermon. I need to take some notes. Like, wow. I love it. I love it though. And I know it's real. I mean, I see you do this stuff, and I'm grateful to, have you to be a leader in that way. But yeah. Oh, my watch fell off. Okay. All right. Well, look. Enough about you, okay? Let's get into this. Yeah. We had some really good times reading this and really breaking it down, trying to understand what was really happening. And like you said, not just glaze over it, but when there's something that we don't understand, we'll continue to read to try to see if, the answers are going to be later on. Yeah. But a lot of times we'll have to stop and break it down right then, and like look in the margins of our study Bibles, try to look up things like, what does that mean? Where did they go? Like, what did they do? What does that mean? Yeah. So we definitely did a lot of that with this reading. So the reading was 1 Samuel 13 through 24, right? And then in the middle there, we did Psalms 11 and 59. And that's just because we're starting to learn about David, about King David. So King David wrote a lot of Psalms, but as we are reading 1 Samuel, where he was going through some of this stuff, this is when he wrote those Psalms. So they made us, in our reading plan, go back and right in the middle of 1 Samuel, we went back and read Psalms 11 and Psalms 59. And then we continued on 1 Samuel 21 through 24. So all in all, we basically read 1 Samuel 13 through 24. I learned a lot from our reading, and I actually had to go and find more information on what was happening, like we said earlier, because I didn't really get it, and then James kept letting me know what's gonna happen after this, which we haven't read yet. But it did help me put things into context and make it make more sense. But yeah. So do you want to start with what sticks out to you in Samuel 13, 14?
So 1 Samuel 13 and 14, it saw, he's already king. So he starts making early mistakes, and he has trouble with the Philistines. So when we say like early mistakes, he's not listening, right? Now, man, this is real. I'm gonna have a real moment, and it's something that we were talking about before. We were talking about today, and you mentioned it. And you were like, you can see yourself in the Israelites. I can see, and listen, guys, I'm being real, right? And I'm trying to. I am changing, not trying to. I am changing, but I could see, myself and doing some things that Saul did, not listening.
Yeah,
like trying to. Sometimes how you're wrong, and then you try to cover it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I did that as a kid 1,000 times. I still do this as an adult. Where you're wrong and then you cover it up, and then you think it's icing, and it's really toothpaste. You're like, what did you this is what you did. You can't cover it up.
Yeah.
Can't make it like all nice and shiny. Yeah. So this is
that's a good way to look at it.
This is an example, right, of what Saul did. So Saul was supposed to wait 7 days for Samuel. Samuel's like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, man, I got to do this. And then Samuel was like, look, Just wait 7 days. Because Israel, they're fighting the Philistines.
Where are you?
13.
Oh, 13.
Yeah, 13:8.
Okay.
So they're having problems finding the Philistines. And we know from past history that if you reach out to God, God has your back. Now, we know this about God. He's very specific, and he's a real big proponent of patience. Mm-hmm. Right? So, Samuel, he's supposed to wait 7 days for Samuel. Samuel didn't come. So what did Saul do? He did an offering. Now we know that for a burnt offering and a peace offering, it has to be done a very specific way. Mm-hmm. We know you have to have an unblemished goat or sheep. We have to know specific things that you do. And from what I've seen, Samson's parents did it too. But it's a way you specifically do it, right? It's specific things. But mostly, if Samuel's telling him to wait, that's basically saying Samuel's going to do the offering because he is, I want to say
like a prophet
priest,
or a priest.
Prophet.
He
was born. Listen, let me tell you something.
I can tell you who you
By the time Samuel was given to the Lord to his mom.
Yeah, from his mom.
From his mom. So you got to understand, Samuel knows God because that's all he knows. He was raised basically by God. You know?
I know it said it somewhere.
Yeah, so Samuel has been at the temple since he was 3 years old. Mm-hmm. He was raised by God. So he knows how to do a burnt offering by like the back of his hand. Like it's I don't want to say it's a habit.
I want to say he's a prophet, but
I would say he's a prophet. Let's say he's a
all right.
He's a prophet.
I'm gonna look it up while you're talking.
She's gonna look it up. But let's right, regardless of, he knows how to do a burnt offering, a peace offering, specifically because God is talking to Samuel. Samuel knows God so well because he's known God his whole life. So Saul was supposed to wait. That's all he was supposed to do. But he goes and he does this burnt offering, and he does a peace offering. And he's like, then as soon as he's done the offerings, Samuel comes. So all he had to do is wait. And Samuel's like, what have you done? It's like, Saul's like, oh man, people were scared, and I just thought that I would do an offering. Did I do something wrong? I knew I have not sought favor with the Lord, so I just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And Samuel's like, oh. He probably was shaking his head. You know how our parents do when you try to clean. He's probably like, come on, man. Right?
He said, you have acted foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For if you had obeyed the Lord, would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. This is Samuel 13:13 that I just read. While I'm here, let me say this. Chime in. Samuel is the last judge, the first kingmaker, priest, and prophet.
He is both.
Who linked the period of judges with the monarchy.
He was raised by God, man. He's
a priest, a prophet, a king, first kingmaker, last judge.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds like a rap verse right there.
He's a man of many hats.
Yeah.
I listen, he was in a temple, and if Saul would, now here's the crazy thing, if Saul would have waited, he would have been king of Israel. But God knows that Saul wasn't going to wait.
And let me just
knew he wasn't.
Listen, this is the problem with us human beings, because this is what we do. If Saul would have waited, yada yada, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm Saul too, right? Because I've had those opportunities. It's just like, why don't you just wait and be patient, be obedient? And it's like, but it's right here. You know what I mean? And then it's like, well, why did you do that? Right? And you find out later. That wasn't the best way. You knew better in the beginning, but you just had to do it your way. Yeah. I mean, I'd be there all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway,
then it's just trouble with the Philistines. Of course, this is an ongoing thing. All right, so here's a question.
okay.
What mistakes did Saul make, and why were they bad?
Saul. All right, look. What mistakes did he make? We haven't even finished Samuel, so I know he's going to make more because I've already heard some things. But so far, from what we've read, he is disobedient and he's impatient. And he has a choice to do better. They're bad because he, would be better. He's the first king. You know what I'm saying? So, and Samuel told him in the beginning, like, this is the way that God will bless you if your king acts like this and does this and is obedient. And he could be a really good example of that if he would just like have some discipline, ironically. But he just like does what he wants to do. And it's wild because I think I said this in the last episode, but like where we left off, Saul hadn't really done anything wrong yet, and I was like, he seems like a good dude. Like, I think he might do okay. And I knew in the back of my mind that he wasn't, but I was just like, he seems all right. Like, let's just see what happens. And so I think the mistakes that he made took him down a deeper hole and a deeper hole. There was one point, we might get to this, but where he needed to call for David to play music because these demons were bothering him, and it made me think of like how we struggle with mental health, and like I just was thinking that it was something like similar that he was going through, where he needed David to come and play the harp so that he could rid himself of these spirits. And it's like from the person that Saul started out as, it's just like this green, like I don't think I'm supposed to be king type of dude, to see how he's just kind of like going down this path, getting darker and darker. It's not just one mistake. It's one mistake that leads to another mistake, that then now that you're this far, you're just going to keep going. And I think that's what makes it bad, because not only is he not learning from his past mistakes, but he's just like, he's here for all of the madness. He's just like, yeah, let's do it. It's like no matter what he goes through, he's not learning from it. So that's why I think it's bad. Because even the mistakes, like we're all gonna make mistakes, but like it's like every mistake he makes, it gets worse and worse, and then his ego is really just driving him to just be, wild, because he got jealous of David, and it's just like everything that happens, he just gets worse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think. What mistakes did Saul make, and why were they bad? Asking you now.
I agree with the impatient, the disobedient, right? Which he didn't listen.
Yep.
And he wasn't disciplined.
Mm.
Like, when I mean discipline, like, if he would have waited 7 days, that's right, discipline, right? That's being patient.
Mm-hmm.
But,
obedient.
That's obedient. So, in essence, we hear about this all the time, right? We started listening to a lot of Jim Rohn. That's recently.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been said all the time about patience. We like the things really quick. We like stuff microwave instead of put in the oven, right? We like things because we this dopamine of having it quick. Well, let me just do it now and get it over with. That's what we're on, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Saul did.
Yeah.
You know what? I can't wait a couple hours. I gotta do this now. If he would have waited a couple hours, he would have been king of Israel. Yeah. But God knew he wasn't gonna wait. God knew it, because this is the man the people chose. God did not choose him.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a wild thought. Yes.
That's when the regret comes in. The guy regrets because he's like, I didn't. Man. That's what happens when you leave us to our own devices and you have no foundation leadership. Your mind starts, no discipline. Your mind starts going crazy. Like, let me hurry up and do this. Let me do this. You get impatient. You're not disciplined. But like, I mean, this is, when I read it, I was like, man, I wouldn't have did that. I don't know, because sometimes in my life I lack a little discipline. I'm impatient. So, I mean, this is what the Bible is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you instructions on what not to do, and you have to understand, if you're really reading the Bible with intent, you're gonna see this in yourself, and that's what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to see this in yourself, and you're supposed to say, okay, I gotta pray, I gotta repent, I have to do better. Because if you don't recognize it, you're not gonna do better. Doing better is realizing and catching yourself in the moment, breaking it down, and then getting better. And then you start thinking differently. But yeah, back to that. That's why they were bad, man.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many thoughts just whirled through my mind right then that I just can't even pick one. But I agree with everything you said. It was actually really exciting. So then after Saul was making mistakes, which he's going to continue to do, then we move on and see that God rejects Saul as king. Mm-hmm. Samuel anoints the youngest. And then we talk about David and Goliath and what happened at the battle.
Yeah.
A couple of things that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
With Saul being rejected as king. One thing you said there that I do have to touch on is how Saul was the chosen king from the people.
Yeah.
Right? The people chose him. Yeah. And because they're like, all the other nations have this, which is crazy to me because that's how we think as just naturally. If you think about how you were as a kid, well, all the other kids have the Nikes. Yeah. Right? All the other kids have the Reeboks. I want the Reeboks with the little pump up on it. Whatever you see that other people have, you're like, I need that because everybody else has it. Meanwhile, you're not taking into account that you are the example. You're God's chosen people, right? So we're talking about the Israelites here. But it's so interesting to me how God honors his structure. God honors the way that he gave people a choice. And he's like, when Samuel was not happy with the fact that they wanted a king, when the Israelites came to them we make, appoint us a king. And he's like, what? God is king. But he, when he went to God about it, God said, give them what they want. Yep. And
I'll tell you who to get. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was wild because it's something that we continuously do. It's just kind of look outside ourselves as opposed to going to God for the answer. I'm not saying that I'm great at this, but it's something that I'm getting better at for sure. It's whenever I have a natural thought or feeling or, just thought pattern, I've been better recently about taking it to God. Even when it's something I know I did wrong, especially when it's something I know I did wrong, it's just or that I'm doing wrong. I feel this way. I'm letting my ego get in the way of progress, or I have an attitude, God, help me. Which is something that it sounds ridiculous and I had never done it before, or rarely ever. I don't think I had ever. But now it's God, I feel, irritated by this person. Help me through this, right? Yeah. Or I feel impatient about this. Help me through this. And I think that's kind of what David was doing, but you never saw Saul do that. Saul's all here for the party. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Bring in the party favors, bring in the music, bring in the DJ. He's just here for whatever. So, anyway. So what stuck out to me in Samuel 13, I'm sorry, that's not what we are, 15 through 17, when God rejected Saul as king, one of the things that I thought that was interesting is that Samuel told Saul, right? Like, you're not going to be king anymore. But I don't think the people knew.
Yeah. No.
Right? That's what it seemed like to me, that it was like, you know, because you're just disobedient, you know, God's not going to rock with you no more, you know, as said by Samuel. I'm trying to figure out exactly when he said that. And I don't think the people actually knew that that was the case. But that's when Samuel went in search of David, who he didn't know it was David, but he went to go, because the Lord sent him to anoint the other king. I guess that was in 14. But yeah, Samuel said to Saul, and this is 15. Samuel said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people. 15:12, when Samuel destroyed the people, right? He went to go set up a monument for himself. Like, he went, okay, basically he was told to go into war, destroy everything, defeat the Amalekites, capture Agag, and not even capture him, but kill Agag, kill sheep, women, men, infants. Like, he was told everything, right? He went in there and didn't do that. He captured the king. Instead of killing him, they just captured him. They killed a bunch of stuff and people, but then they kept some of the, like, animals for themselves, like the prize animals. Like, oh, this is a perfectly good sheep, we're going to keep this for ourselves. And then after the fact, as if that wasn't so bad that you just disobeyed God, then he went and made a monument for himself. Like, oh, we defeated them, we're so great, make me a statue, right? It's just like when somebody makes a bust of their face, and it's like now a statue somewhere. It's just like, how you know, empty yourself are you? So this is the part where the word of the Lord came to Samuel saying, I regret that I made Saul king. That was what God has said, because he's turned away from following me and has not carried out my commands. Now, God knows everything that's about to happen, but he honored his word and gave the people what they wanted. You know what I'm saying? Like, people have a choice. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I don't want to keep going because I have some stuff to say too about when he found David. But please chime in here. Like, what stuck out to you in 17 through 15 through 17?
Yeah, when God rejects Saul, it's because he didn't listen. And the previous chapters, I just think that other people listen, and we've seen this time and time again. If you don't listen to God, when you give specific instructions, then there's an issue. He said, take him out, like you said, right? But he was like, nah, I'm trying to keep it. And then I think what happens is when Samuel confronted him about it, he was like, why didn't you obey it? He was like, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. So he covered it up. Mm-hmm. You know, once again, he's covering it up instead of being honest and being like, you know, listen, I have not obeyed the Lord. I have sinned.
Right, let me repent.
Right, we took the spoils for ourselves. The king is still alive. What can I do? Now, at that point, you're making the choice. Now, I don't think, if he would have done that, I don't think God would have been like, I'll strike you down. God might have said, I'm still going to find another king of Israel. God could have still said, I regret. But the point is, Saul would have been honest. And at that point,
we don't know what would have happened, right? We don't know what happened, right? But
you lied again.
But from what we've seen with other people who've made mistakes and then repented for them, God lets them continue. He might like change your name, or he might like, you know, something, you have to sacrifice something moving forward, but he's still going to keep his promise to you. But if you just completely just disobey God, you're not keeping your promise to him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're cut off. Yeah. You're cut off from the family name. So when Saul actually got rejected, it was in 15 And I think it was 15:26 when Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And Samuel walked away. Saul grabbed the hem of his robe, and Samuel was like, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and given it to your neighbor who is better than you. Ooh, that hurts. But he did what he did. You know what I'm saying?
Because he blatantly lied. If he was honest, but he said, listen, in 15:20, and Saul said to Samuel, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. I've gone on the mission which the Lord sent me, and I've brought back, and I've brought King Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and I have devoted the Amalekites to destruction. But the people took the spoil, sheep and oxen, and the best of the things devoted to destruction and sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. That's not what he said to do.
Right.
You lied. You knew what you were supposed to do. We know this because God gives specific instructions. He didn't say, hey, keep it.
Or bring me back some stuff.
Bring it back.
And then Samuel checked them right then and there and said, has the Lord as a great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obedience to the voice of him? Like, does he want you to obey him, or does he want you to bring him back stuff?
Yeah.
Right? And then later on, here's what's really interesting. Once Samuel said what he said about, like, God has rejected you, right? And then Saul tore the hem. And then in 1 Samuel 15:30, now Saul finally says, I've sinned, but please honor me now. Right? So, like, wait a minute. First you was just saying that you did not sin. Right. Yeah. Right? And now that God is going to separate from you, now you want to admit that you're saying it's too late now. You know what I'm saying? So in 16, that's when we meet David.
Yep.
When Samuel goes to find, I guess, Jesse, who's the father of David and a bunch of other guys. Yeah. And he, Samuel's like, show me your sons. And so he showed him all his sons. Yeah. And God was guiding Samuel to know which one it was. And then he was like, do you have another son? And he was like, yeah, but he's down here, with the sheep. So they went and got him, and then it was obvious that this is the guy, right? But David wasn't like strong or tall or anything like that, and we know that Saul was like really tall and good looking and all this, and I guess he like looked like a king. I don't know. And then I don't know what that means, but somebody had said that in one of the things we were researching, like, oh, so he would make for a great king because of this, but I just don't think that's great qualifications. Yeah. But anyway, David was like small in stature. He was not like some grandiose, like, guy or whatever. And, Saul, in comparison, was bigger and stronger, but Samuel was speaking to God, right? God was speaking to Samuel, and he knew that David was the person that he needed to be king next. So he anointed him king, right? Yeah. Samuel did. But at the same time, or maybe right before, the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented and terrified him. This is what the Bible says in the Amplified Version, an evil spirit from the Lord. And I wondered what that meant. Yeah. But I think it's just the flip side of, of a good spirit. It's just like everything has two parts, and it's like if you're not gonna use it for good, it's gonna turn bad on you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now we're in 17. Yep. This is when we learn about David and Goliath. And Goliath was really big. Obviously, I think everybody knows this story. Yeah. Where David is small, Goliath is big, and Goliath is a Philistine, and David has so much faith that he was going to beat Goliath, and other people didn't think he would. Even his own brothers were like, they were fighting. Some of his brothers were in the troops, I guess you want to call it, and David was like, why are you guys, tripping off of him, right? And they got offended because they were like, well, you don't know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
you're small.
Say that.
What happened? Tell me.
He said, who is this guy? Mm-hmm. You gonna let him talk about God? Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody gonna check him? No, y'all out here tripping, man.
Mm-hmm. And then he went and defeated him.
Exactly what happened. Yep.
He went and defeated him, and they thought he was being overconfident, but he had so much faith in God.
Yes.
And he went and defeated Goliath, as big as he was.
Yes.
So I love that story.
Two things about the story, which I think it doesn't. I don't know. This is from my perspective. Number one is they try to give him all the armor and everything to fight Saul, but you got to do things your way
to fight Goliath.
I'm sorry, he didn't. Yes, you got to do things your way and know what you're good at. Don't try to go and do it somebody else's way, because that's the way that they process information, and that was, that's the way they did things. If God is putting it to your heart to do it that way, follow God. Now here's the thing. We like to see things. You have to have trust and faith in God. And you got to do it your way. Right? So that's why he went to go get a smooth stone. He's like, I know how to defeat. I've defeated lions and bears. I know what I'm doing. Right? Two, the second thing that sticks out is people call it cocky when you believe in yourself and you believe in God.
That's a great point.
How? When I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm getting it from God, and this guy is ill talking God, and you're just standing here? No, not on my watch. So those are two things, right? One, do it your way through God's will. Trust God. Have faith. Second, don't worry about, other people might call you cocky, overconfident, but if you're getting it from God and you're reading God's word, trust in that.
Yeah, because you're doing all you can do at that point.
Trust in that.
And and you're going to feel that. Like, yes. I think everybody feels, however they feel. But when you start getting into the word and you start realizing, like, hey, I know this to be true, because first of all, you can recognize the truth. But secondly, like, you can see major examples of it, having taken place that you've witnessed in your life. Anyway, let's get into the question.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you. God often appoints the youngest, weakest, or least likely. Why do you think that is?
All right. You say this all the time. And now I'm going to go to the Bible, right? And this is what the Bible says, because this we got to go to the source.
Yes.
All right. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. So the Lord sees what's inside of you that you don't even see in yourself. So every time if we've seen people, and this goes into life, that you'd be like, how did that person become successful? Well, they had heart. They had belief. They had faith. Because God sees something that we don't see. We're so built to look at the outward appearance and the sight of things and what we need to touch. When God, we look at time. We look at how big or how nice a car is. We worry about what people say. We want all the flashy things, right?
Yeah.
God's like, no, you guys got it all wrong, man.
Yeah.
First of all, you need to have patience. Second of all, let's see how a person's character is. How much heart they have. How much they believe in me. Then that's what you should be basing it off. A person's character, how they carry themselves. versus how do they physically look.
We got it all backwards.
We got it all backwards, right? So that's why I think you could go from Gideon, you could go from King David, you could go from Moses. They say Moses was like, man, I'm not trying to talk, and now he's considered, I think, one of the greatest prophets. He led Israel out of Egypt. I mean, he created, he didn't create the Ten Commandments, but like he helped write a lot of the laws. He had such a good relationship with God. So, I mean, it's a lot. You could say Joseph. Joseph wasn't the biggest of his brothers. I think he was one of the smallest, and he became king of Egypt. Right? He had visions, and his brothers tried to sold him into slavery, but he had patience and faith, and he ended up being king, even when he was incarcerated for no reason at all. He still had faith in God. Boom. But we don't look at that, right? Oh man, he's so scrawny and small. Look at his brothers, though. What? So I just think we, like you said, we get it all wrong. So.
Yeah, I think so too. I was actually looking for something because I was trying to point to it, but I could just speak to it because I think it was around the times of Gideon, because I'm trying to answer this question about God often appoints the youngest, the weakest, or the least likely. Why do you think that is? I think you're onto something there with the fact that we look at stupid stuff like how much money a person has or how they look. It's like that doesn't have anything to do with your character, right? Like, I think that's a really good answer, and I see that it's in the Word. So I think that's true. I also think that it's true that sometimes God uses people or weird circumstances, like unfavorable like conditions, to prove the point that it's God working. Right? I think it was back when Gideon was putting together an army, but I can't remember exactly when this was. Where there was like 300 men, and they were like trying to decide like who laps up water with their hands and stuff like that. And right around that time, God was saying like, I don't want too many people to go because then they'll think they did it, and they won't know that it was me.
Yes.
Right? Because like if you just think like, we're going to go over there because we have the biggest, strongest army and the best weapons. It's us and we'll get the glory, right? Whereas when God chooses someone to do magnificent things and it's an unlikely thing that they would actually succeed, then it's obvious that like, that wasn't me. Like, how do you think that I could have done this? It was God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you hear stories about things that happen to people and you don't know the background. You just saw whatever you saw, right? But when they explain like what their journey was, what they had to learn, what they had to go through, it's like God is not only using them and working through them and they become better, but it's also like just proof that like I couldn't have done this by myself, and like it had to be God working with me, through me, or else this would have never happened. Like, do you see? Right? It's just like David and Goliath, perfect example. Like, do you see how small I am? Like, I could have never defeated him without God. Like, but he gave me the answer. He gave me the tools. Like, he prepared me beforehand, way before I knew that I would ever face a Goliath. Right? So I think that's why God does that. It's one to kind of like test people's faith, because I'm thinking about Moses now, because Moses was like, oh, certainly not me, I'm not the best speaker, but he was like, he was willing to try. And so he learned about himself. He walked with God. He didn't he did it afraid, right? He was scared. He wasn't necessarily prepared, but he did it anyway. And in fact, he was the only person to do it because he had grown up amongst, the Egyptians. So he knew the customs of both. But it's interesting because I think when God chooses us to do something, it's super uncomfortable, and you just definitely want to be like, no, like not me, like I don't think that's the right way for me, right? But we have to remember that what we're reading here is that he's going to use you, and it is going to be ridiculous. He is going to have you succeed through the greatest of odds.
Yeah.
You just have to see that there was a David, that there was a Moses, that there was all these things that happened, like, you know, Abram and Sarah, who had a baby when she was like 90 or something. I don't remember how old she was. It was just like, yeah, you're going to see all these things happen that are like miracles, because you're going to know that it came from God.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. 1 Samuel 18 through 20. All right. And this is Saul pursues David in jealousy. And then you get the 2 early songs of David. So this is basically David and Jonathan. Jonathan is Saul's son. And David and Jonathan develop a friendship. And, you know, Saul got jealous of David. Because he's doing... Now, remember what we said, right? We tend to... When people say something, we look towards that for assurance or for recognition or for congratulations instead of looking to God. And then what that does is, because you're not looking towards God, it leads to these feelings of jealousy and anger. And here it is. Here's the people shouting, Saul has struck down his 1,000 and David his 10,000. And that's in 1 Samuel 18:7. So the women started singing it. You know that. Come on, man. They got a group of pretty women singing like, Saul did 1,000. He's like, yeah, David did 10,000. Wait, whoa. Right? So now Saul gets angry, tries to kill David. For no reason at all, man.
It was unclear to me at this point if Saul knew that David was going to be the new king. Because remember, Samuel told Saul that, okay, God's going to depart from you. God's going to abandon you like you abandoned his instruction.
Yeah.
And then Samuel went to go appoint David, but I just really don't know if Saul knew that David was his replacement.
Yeah.
Right? Or if he just hated him just because he was getting a lot of attention or, you know, praise from their people. But it was also jealousy because, yeah, it's true, right? Like, it's a little hard to take, sure, right? Like, sure, Saul killed 1,000, but David kills tens of thousands, right? Like, but they didn't say but, it says and. So it could have been like a fun song, like, you know, I was just thinking about, like, you made it a hot line, I made it a hot song.
Yeah.
Like, that was like a dig. Yeah. But this might not have been that. This might have been like, hey, you made a hotline, and we made a hot song. Like, it could have been a celebration of the song that the women were singing, but he didn't take it that way. Saul was not happy.
Nope.
And then he just wanted to end David because he was like, probably thinking like the end of him means that the people will, you know, celebrate me foremost again. This is what I'm thinking, and I don't know if it said that in there, but Saul's intention was to cause David's death at the hand of the Philistines. He tried a bunch of times to kill David.
Yep.
And I don't know if David was, he wasn't. He wasn't aware of it. But every
until his Jonathan.
Yeah. He wasn't aware of it at first. But everything that Saul did to try to end David, just God was with David. So it was like it never worked. And Saul is like probably getting more and more frustrated, like, what is up with this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jonathan did tell David.
Yeah. So
Jonathan and David were
tight.
Tight, man. They were road dogs. Jonathan looked out for him.
Yeah.
You know? And he didn't have to do it, but the Bible says, 1 Samuel 18, as soon as he finished speaking to Saul, the soul of David was knit to the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, Jonathan loved him as his own soul. So they were boom. You guys know this. Anytime in life, man, you get to know somebody, you're like, man,
I rock with
I
you.
rock with you, and then boom, off the break. You know, I still got some friends like that. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, and then the two early Psalms of David. Like we said, when Saul started to pursue David,
Yeah.
he didn't know that he was trying to end his life.
Yeah.
But then Jonathan told him, and then once Jonathan told him, they had this plan for how he was going to come back and let David know when he had to leave or whatever. And so David fled, and he, once he realized that, okay, they're going to try to kill me, you know what I'm saying? He left, and he wrote these two Psalms, Psalms 11 and Psalm 59. And it was basically about, you know, God being with him regardless of who's after him, and just celebrating God. He actually wrote these psalms in like celebration, in saying, God, you're the authority. Nobody can touch me because I'm paraphrasing here, so I don't know exactly what it says. Psalm 11 is saying they take aim with their arrow on the string. The Lord tests the righteous and the wicked. The upright shall see his face. So he's basically like, he's praying, but then he's also singing a song at the same time. He takes refuge in the Lord, and he puts his trust in the Lord. Even though he knows these people are out to get him, he knows that, like, God is with me. You know, so those what these two psalms are about. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I think we've all heard that one.
Yeah.
Right? Is that one? Deliver me from my enemies, oh God. I don't know if that's the one that we've read yet, but that's one of the ones he wrote, because I was reading it over here. That's what he wrote. But anyway, so that's
walk out the shadow of the. I know the verse you're talking about. I don't know the verse specifically. I know the verse you're talking about. It's like a famous Bible verse. I know. Walk through the shadow of the valley of death. Yeah. Okay. He's a songster, man. He's good with music.
Yeah, that was Psalm 23:4.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how David was. You know, we talked about this, man. He was good with. He was a good poet and he could create music to the Lord.
Oh yeah, he played the harp. I have to imagine he probably played other instruments.
Yeah.
He could play music. That's why Saul actually sent for him originally. Like, oh, I need this guy to come play the harp for me because I'm being, you know, tormented by demons or whatever, some spirits. And then, so that's why David originally came to help Saul.
Yeah.
That's why he originally came around him. And then, you know, so we know that he's a poet. We know that he's basically a songwriter. Yeah. He can write songs. He can play music. Yeah. He's good with sheep. We know that he's defeating Goliath. He's out here, you know, he's out here doing the most in these streets. Yeah. But he's all while he's praising God. Now, I know later on we're gonna see David do some unfavorable things, but right now I'm a true fan.
Everybody does.
I mean, I'm gonna be a true fan afterwards too, but after I know, because it already happened. Like, who cares? Yeah. Who cares what I think? But anyway, okay. Let me ask you the question.
Yes.
Have you ever been falsely accused and persecuted? How is it like or different from David's persecution? That's a heavy one, my friend.
Oh, let me think.
Have you ever been falsely accused and persecuted? How is it like or different from David's persecution? I think that's a heavy word, persecuted.
Yeah.
I would really want to look up the definition of that. I know what the gist of it is, but like, so. I don't think on the level of David that I've experienced.
No, not.
But go ahead and do you have an example that you would like to share, or you don't even have to share the example? You can just answer the question if you feel more comfortable. How is it like or different than David's persecution?
I'm trying to think of a situation that I was.
Well, let me go then, because I have one right at the top of my.
Yeah.
I have two actually. One is just a general theme of like being under or feeling like you're being undervalued or second guessed, right? Like, it's not like necessarily persecution, but it's the underlying feeling that like either somebody's talking crap about you or something, or that someone has this perception of you, and that you know, don't have any say in it, right? It's kind of like when somebody's talking behind your back. Now, that's not like David, because nobody's out to get me or take my life. But people throwing daggers, right? Like they think it's a big secret that we're talking about her. When you kind of know when somebody's like talking crap about you, or somebody's treating you a certain way, especially when you're around somebody who talks crap about other people. You have to just imagine that they're doing the same thing about you and other people. So, in those instances where I feel like that's the case, I always just take like sort of comfort in the fact that, like, if it doesn't come directly to me, I can't address it directly, so I can't let it bother me, because I'm not about to go. The only alternative to address it would be to go and talk about them behind their back, right? So it's like you can't address something until it comes to your door. In those moments, I just try to like ignore it, because it's nothing that I can do about their perception, especially when they haven't brought it to my door, right? I just try to ignore it, and I try to use that as fuel to just like be a good person, because regardless of what somebody thinks, it doesn't even matter. So when in that way, I feel like, I've been falsely accused and persecuted, but like not really so much the persecution part, other than people are trying to tear down my name. And ironically, not even ironically, I mean, like, when you just try to live well and try to do good, God blesses you. I feel like that's just what's happened for me. And so, like, regardless of what people say, like, the truth is presented to them too. So you get to hear something about somebody, and then you could say, well, that's not what I've seen from her, right? And I think that's been the case. But if it hasn't, like, why would I even bother myself with it? Because I just want to have a good day, right? But there is one thought in my mind where someone lied on me to someone else, and then I was confronted with the lie and the person in the room, and it was uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable, but and I'm a nice person, but I have teeth, and it and it came to a situation where I had to show my teeth, and I had to let them know, like, this is a lie. Like, why are you lying? And, how do you think that goes, right? They're going to keep lying. And somehow I feel like God was with me, and I was able to point out the right facts to where the person broke down and said, well, okay, well, I guess that part wasn't true, right? Like, they had to actually admit that, like, right? And you were there.
I know.
So it was one of those things where, and I mean, this is the worst thing for me. Like, I hate it when people lie on me. Like, just tell the truth. Let's just deal with the truth, man. And, I don't want to mess up his words, but like Todd from Real Housewives, Candy's husband, he said, like, let's just deal with the truth, because the truth is hard enough, or something like that, right? So I feel that same way. Like, don't put anything false on my name. Like, let's just deal with the truth. Like, there's plenty you can complain about me, right? With the truth. Just use the truth. Do not lie on me, because it just really burns my bubbles. So in that particular circumstance, yes, I was falsely accused. I felt I was persecuted because I was being held to account for this thing that I did not do. And it was similar to David's persecution in the way that it was just somebody like trying to do whatever they were doing for whatever reason they wanted to do. I don't even know. I still don't know to this day. But it was different because nobody was after my life. And I was willing to just sacrifice whatever had to happen, because I knew I wasn't wrong. So like I was willing to just be like, however this ends up, I'm good with it. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
I got one actually.
Go ahead. Share.
We just talked about this at my fantasy football draft. But it was in a situation where I was falsely accused with other people, and the way I was persecuted was financially, and it was nothing that we did or I did as a group that was being accused. And sometimes people do that when they aren't honest with themselves. When they're like, how could this be? Well, what if I'm just working really hard and focusing on my job? And I'm having intent on being a good employee and having the best, you know, being the best employee. And what it looks like is me being the best employee helps the company out. How do you? And I wasn't by myself. It was a group of us. You know, how does that look? How does that look when you become jealous? It looks crazy because I'm not doing anything to affect you. I'm only making you look better.
Mm-hmm.
David was making Saul look better.
Yeah.
And he got jealous.
Yeah.
I don't know how he could do that.
Well, it's just like you're benefiting my people.
You're like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And I would never forget that. And I'll never forget it to this day. It was...
I think I know what you're talking about, but I maybe don't.
Yeah. You were there as well. So...
Oh, gosh. See, we're telling all of our...
No. But and the people that hear this, you know... so... But it's not compared to my life being, David's persecution, because Saul tried to kill him a couple times.
Yeah.
Throwing spears. I'm not sitting at somebody's dinner table and they're like,
yo, God is so amazing though, because I just saw this lady, I think it was like a vice president in some other country, and somebody like tried to assassinate her, had a gun to her head and pulled the trigger and his gun jammed.
See?
And I was like, God was with her that day, man. I don't know what her faith is. I never had seen her before, I don't think. But I was just like, they showed the footage, which I guess nowadays, like, you can't keep the footage away. Like, there was a time where you could watch the news and they would be like, hey everybody, this is gonna get graphic, so please brace yourselves. But I didn't even see this on the news. I saw it on social media. So it was like,
somebody's gonna put it up there.
Somebody put it up there, and I was just thinking to myself, like, they were recording it because it was her. Because it's like, if I saw Kamala Harris, I'm gonna bring my phone out too. You know what I mean? So I guess in their country, they're like, oh, it's the vice president. And they were just excited, but that person put that gun out there. That was wild. I was like, this could have been so terribly. I mean, it was already kind of traumatic, but like, if the gun hadn't jammed, it would have been completely horribly traumatic. And I mean, just recently, a man, I can't remember who he was, but he did get assassinated from some shooter. But anyway, it wasn't in America, but that was wild. But I was like, that gun jammed, that was God. Crazy. I felt like that was a God moment. So, we didn't have to deal with persecution like David did, but some people do. So, Godspeed to them. Anyway, okay, so let's finish out with this last part. 1 Samuel 21 through 24. It's one bullet. Saul continues his pursuit. Yeah, trying to kill David, which is like so petty. Yeah, petty Betty. He is like following him through the mountains. Yeah, and it's like he's right up on him at one point, and then they had to go and like deal with the Philistines or something. And then it says that David went to go relieve himself in a cave, and David and his people were in there because David started to get like a following himself of people who were like, we're gonna rock with you, we're gonna hang with you. And so I guess when Saul came into the cave to relieve himself, David got so close to him that he was able to like cut the hem of his garment. And so then he followed him out of the cave and was like, Saul, look, I know you're looking for me, but I could have just killed you and I didn't. So check yourself. He didn't say that, but that's how I imagine it was said. But and apparently that happens another time, but we haven't gotten there yet. No, that happened. I know. I'm saying it happens. It happens then, and then it happens again. Okay. So, but anyway, that is where we are. And then okay, so the question is, okay, Saul continues his pursuit. How can we spend time waiting for God's deliverance? I mean, in prayer?
I think in prayer. I think in patience. And I think trusting Him, having faith, right? And right, because listen, here's the thing about God is we know He doesn't see stuff that we see. Right? And we're looking for the physical. So when you're waiting for God's deliverance, you have to have faith. So you're not going to see it. And you have to continue to keep talking to Him, have patience, and wait. Like, you're not going to be able to see it.
I have something that just came to me.
Yeah.
I think another thing that we can do is remind ourselves of who God is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Reading His Word.
Yes.
Just familiarizing ourselves with. Somebody has said this. I want to say it was Myron, who was like, "Do you remember everything you read?" This is like, no, you can't possibly. The amount of distraction that tempts us on a daily, on an hourly basis, on a minute by minute basis is ridiculous. There are literally 20 things I could do right this moment that would like up my dopamine levels, right? But I have to stay focused.
Yeah.
So like that's me saying that though, right? Yeah. But like, can you imagine? So the reason I brought up Myron's point about like, do you remember everything you read? It goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about like when I don't read the Bible every day, and it's not like I'm reading the same parts of the Bible every day, but like when I don't read the Bible on a regular basis, and that doesn't have to be every single day, but like 4 times a week.
4 times a week is good.
All right, if I'm not doing that, or even 3, there have been times where I've gotten away with 3, and been able to just like carry myself on with just keeping meditating on the Word.
Yeah.
But my thinking is this. You forget so quick. I remember when we used to go to church every Sunday, and like that Sunday, I'd be fired up for God. You know what I'm saying? Oh, nothing's gonna tear me down.
Baby.
Come Monday morning, somebody done irritated me to the point where I'm like, you know, all the way away from the sermon. Like all the notes I took, you might as well just ball them up and throw them in the trash. It's like I just forgot about all that stuff is out of the window. So I think that what we can do when we, you know, spend time waiting on God's deliverance is pray, 2, remind yourself of the Word, meditate on God's Word, and here's another one which I think is probably the answer that they were looking for. What did David do? David was sitting there writing psalms, which were really like prayers, but they were songs. He was praising God in the way that using his own gifts. Right? Like if you think about like he's a songwriter. So he's like writing songs about God. Like if I were an author, which I am, I just haven't written a book yet, but like you're using your gifts to praise God. I think that's probably what it is. Praise him in the storm or something like this, right? So, I mean, whatever gifts you have, just like connecting them back to God, I guess that's how it's a good way. I mean, it just hit me that like, oh, David's writing psalms. Like, he's out here in these streets, like, you know, just like really, you know, scared for his life in some ways. But he's just like, all right, I'm just going to believe in God. I'm going to wake up and just write another song. Another one. He's like DJ Khaled. Well, DJ Khaled isn't really, I don't think he writes the songs. But like, you know. But like, you know, think of a songwriter. It, you know, I guess that's what he's doing. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. Rub them together.
So yeah, that's, man. So, all right, guys. So next week, all right, and we're going to do shout-outs. So next week we're actually reading the Psalms of David. So you gotta remember, guys, David wore many hats. He was a beast, right? Not only was a king and a soldier and defeated Goliath, but a lot of times he was a songwriter. He wrote songs.
Writing them hits.
Right? So we're gonna go into the Psalms of David. So we're gonna read Psalms 7, 27, 31, 34, 52, Psalms 56, 120, 140 to 142, And then we're going to read Samuel 25 to 27, and then we'll finish up with Psalms 17, 35, 54, 63.
That's a lot to remember, but maybe I'll tweet it or something. Yeah. I'll definitely put it in the description of the podcast and of the YouTube channel. Yeah. So I'll start with you. What kind of shout outs do you have for this week? I'm gonna go with some stuff that affected me this week and what I dealt with, and that's how I'm gonna shout out. That's how I'm gonna use my shout out today.
Oh.
But
I'm just gonna do my normal shout out fourth quarter, which is cool if you want to, get a different perspective on sports and actually listen to what the fans are saying and not necessarily listening to what main media is saying. Check your fourth quarter. The link will be in the description. We also, Yes, I'm a Unicorn. My wife's channel for all, she loves the plan, and so check her out. Check out my two sisters.
Those two sisters. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Those two sisters. With Damita Jo. Check out Miss Damita Jo too, and Rev TV.
Rev TV.
Rev TV.
It's okay.
I'm just wrong.
It's all right. It's all going to be linked down below, guys. You don't even have to worry about it.
I do want to do this one shout out. Shout out to my friend Jamal. Go to the Rage Room. It just opened up. So go have fun. We got video games. So go have fun. We're probably gonna go soon. It's gonna be nice. So shout out to the Rage Room.
That's what's up.
I'll get the information and say.
Yeah, so I can link it below. I was gonna ask if he. I didn't know if he'd gotten around to I'm pretty sure though. Yeah, he's got a website and stuff.
Yeah,
Keisha.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to those two sisters. My other podcast, which is not really my podcast, it's my sister's podcast, but it's both of ours together because we, it's those two sisters live. Right now we're doing Thursday nights, and it's just two sisters having fun conversation. It is not rated G. We are just, imagine two sisters talking about current events and things like that, and that's what it is. So sometimes it gets a little juicy. Then I want to give a shout out to Miss Damita Jo, the half of those two sisters, the first sister. I want to give a shout out to my channel, sure. Yes, I'm a Unicorn. And I'll give a shout out to Bowie State University Symphony of Soul. They are doing the thing this year. I'm so excited for them.
BSU.
Their drum line is amazing, and so is their their other instruments. I'm really just a fan of the drum line, and I'm a fan of the tuba line too. So I had to give a special shout out to them because they sound so great. I'm gonna link their Instagram below as well, so you can follow them. And then my last shout out is, sorry, this is a lot of them, huh? Did I say Read TV already? Yeah. Relationship Entertainment TV. Gotta say that. That's not my last shout out. My last shout out is to
keep going.
Just a person that I've been listening to a lot. Actually, it's like a two-parter. Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is, I'm confident that he was a believer. He's not around anymore. I've shouted him out before. But, the impact of a person to have their work span beyond their life, I think it's amazing when that can happen. You think a lot of musicians and other people, even maybe politicians or pastors or whatever, who have done work that still lives, right? Like an author can very easily impact people beyond their span of life. So we're reading things from what's his name, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I don't think he was ever alive while we were alive. I feel like he was alive, he may have passed away in the 50s or the 60s or something, right? Because I feel like he was out there with Yeah, he was way back in the day, but like that book that he wrote, especially he wrote a lot of books, but like the book Think and Grow Rich, people talk about it all the time. It's like a I don't know. It's like one of the first books in everybody's library. I feel right when you're building a library.
When you're trying to do self development.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting how people can leave a footprint that spans beyond their lifetime. And I just want to give a special shout out to Jim Rohn, because it's so funny how I was just saying this to you last week. Like, obviously I never met him, even though he was alive while I was an adult, actually. But I didn't, I had heard his voice before, but I didn't know who he was or what he did, really. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure, like, I need to talk to my mom, but she used to like those seminars. She went to like a couple of seminars like that. Not Jim Rohn himself, but like Les Brown. Like, I remember she went to a Les Brown seminar.
Another shout out to Les Brown too.
Shout out to Les Brown. But I just wanted to give that shout out because
he's definitely a believer.
Here's a couple of people who gave their lives, like what they not gave their lives, but they specialized in, like success, like self-development. And these are kind of like instructions for like how to be successful. And it's so funny how it comes in the package of like audio tapes or books, but it's stuff that you would be able to figure out by the time you've lived several decades. But it's really cool that you don't even have to do that. You could just learn from somebody who has a really good communication style and is going to break it down in a palatable way, where you could just be like, oh, that does make sense. I'm going to try that. Right? Now you just saved me 20 or 30 years of making more mistakes in this way. Right? I'm just going to listen to you because it sounds correct. You know what I'm saying? Like, makes logical sense to me. Didn't think of that. Yep. So just a shout out to him, even though he's no longer with us. But
all right.
That's all. And listen, don't take our word for it.
Go to the source.
Read your Bible.
All right, guys.
All right, peace.